hello and welcome from my side as well. As already have been said, my name is Lana Zdravkovic. I'm co-operator of the Peace Institute, and together with my colleague Maja Ladic, we are coordinating the Komide project in Slovenia. I'm also very happy to see you all here, and I'm happy that so many people are interested in what we will talk here today and tomorrow, and about the special connection between migration and development, and what we have to say and think about this issue. We are opening our panel discussions with a panel discussion called What is Development Without Migrants? The whole project, our project Komide, is concentrated on this relation about migration and development, and we don't make illusions to ourselves that we can think about development without being aware of post-colonial and post-imperial situation and discourse. And I think it's very important to have in mind when thinking about development cooperation, development aid, humanitarian aid, and when we are hearing about all these beautiful stories about development help, from so-called first world countries to so-called third world countries. And I think these are all the issues that we have to rethink and critically approach to it. In order to achieve maybe one day some global equality. So I think that migrants as very important actors of development cooperation concept that we try to think, it's very important to try to think these two concepts together and not separate. So I'm very happy to have our guests here. I think that we will have very good presentations, and it will be a good starting point also for a debate later on. So we will start. I would like to ask all of you, or the three of you, to be more or less in 10-15 minutes to have short presentations, and then we will have second round also to give an opportunity for the audience maybe to ask questions, because you are really precious guests. We don't have much opportunities to have you in Slovenia, so it would be a good opportunity also to have some space, some time for the people from the audience to ask you questions. So we will start with Mr. Djibril Fall. Your presentation is called Migrants as Development Actors, Achievements and Barriers. It is a very important topic, I think. Mr. Djibril Fall has been a management consultant, business advisor and university lecturer for over 15 years, working on private, public and charitable sector development, and was one of the pioneers of social enterprise business support delivery in the UK. And he's also the chairman of the African Foundation for Development, a UK-based charity, which works to extend and enhance the role of diasporans play in African development. So, Djibril, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and it is an honor and pleasure to be here in Ljubljana, in Slovenia. It's my first time in this city. And on the question of migrants as actors in development, it is indeed, as suggested by Marx, is a story well known. I think it was Kenneth Galbraith who did say, he wrote it in 1969, that migration is the oldest action against poverty. People migrate for different reasons, but when it comes to development, fundamental amongst that is the relief of poverty. Migration is the oldest action. I had the honor and privilege this time round of the high-level dialogue to be part of civil society that influenced the United Nations to actually hold a preparatory event in July. In 2006, when we had the first high-level dialogue, although there was a lot of involvement by diaspora organizations like AFFORD, still, because it's a government activity, all of those actions was on the margin. So when the General Assembly convened, it was just governments reading their statements. However, in the 7 years, we have realized and noticed, and the whole world has noticed this, that migration and development is firmly on the agenda. So the question now is how we make the policies work well within the framework of policy coherence and development, as mentioned earlier. Secondly, how to make sure that usually what happens with policy, that is policymakers take it and move away and kick out practitioners, how we make sure that does not happen. In this case, the practitioners are the migrants themselves. And then to look at practically in our different countries, which have different circumstances, how we localize it and build a national effort. Because the migrants and the diaspora in Slovenia here, I would say that all of the positive action and the role they play in international development and the development of their countries of origin is at the end of the day part of the effort of Slovenia, because they belong here, they belong there. So it is important to see the role of migrants and diaspora within that national effort, as it were. We come from the starting point that migrants and diaspora I mean the settled migrants or the second and third generation, people who are not involved in active migration or have actually never migrated before, the children of migrants, for example. We know their contribution falls in different categories like finance, as mentioned, or skills, or attitude and innovations. What I want to concentrate on is, are there any sort of guidelines that can help us to enhance that contribution and also to remove the barriers? This is what I call commissions and omissions, what we commit to do and what we omit from doing. And in my experience, I have observed a sort of logical sequence to things. One is that be it government, NGOs, or other institutions, in terms of their dealings with migrants and diaspora, they have to go through a sequence of 3 main stages. One is to have an objective understanding of the role of migrants and diaspora. Second is to have what I call a semi-emotional acceptance of the virtues of diaspora development. And third, to provide wholehearted support. And I don't think the third one can happen without the second, and the second cannot happen without the first. The first one on objective understanding. To a great degree, the world have now understood the role of diaspora and development. This is not true. This was not true in 2006 when the high-level dialogue force came in. There was some understanding, but limited. And this was not true in 1994 when for the first time the United Nations Conference on Population and Development made a tentative link between migration and development. That also happened to be the year that my organization, AFFORD, was founded in the United Kingdom. I wasn't part of it. I met them in 1997. But by that time, I knew that there was a great deal of ignorance about the role of diaspora in development. But as I said, that bit has moved on and we've achieved a lot. You would perhaps have heard of Paul Collier, the well-known economist. He's just published, he's an authority on African economies particularly, and published, he gave us the phrase, the bottom billion. He has just recently published a new book called Exodus on Migration and Development. and he's already getting a lot of criticism for some of his views. One of his arguments is he's not sure that there is evidence that migrants always benefit from migration. I'm not critiquing his book in this forum, but I just want to say that even migrants who live in absolute destitution, many of them have chosen that in order to help their family and to make sure that the next generation does not suffer what they've gone through. So that is even for the migrants who everybody accepts are having the worst possible time. In July at the high-level dialogue preparatory meetings, I reminded the audience that in my view, people migrate for three main reasons: to learn, to earn, or to yearn, in the broadest possible sense. For education and skill development, to increase their economic power, and some just to dream and wonder about this world of ours. And all those three reasons are valid, and there is no argument against it. All we have to do in our borders and our protection of our sovereignty to see how we can be relaxed and get a broader sense of the human family. Even 25 years ago, at the height of the Cold War, to talk of borderless countries would have been thought silly and foolish. Even today, people say this is ridiculous. I'm not one who argues for borderless world or no border controls, but I have seen a borderless world in the past 15, 20 years. That's the European Union. It has happened, and this is a country, this is a continent 60, 70 years before had killed each other in epic numbers. And within a generation, living generation, they've had a borderless community. So sometimes what we think idealist is really isn't. It's about whether we are willing to do it as humans. On the second question of acceptance, I have some doubt as to whether all governments, institutions, and civils and big NGOs, even those who have signed up, I have some doubt as to whether they have a full acceptance of what the objective evidence is, that is the tremendous role of migrants and diaspora. Too often for my comfort, I have heard murmurs and whispers among policymakers, say in the developed world, who think that migrants are just exploiting the country they are here to export it, to send it. So they're in Slovenia using all of the opportunities here just to take it out of Slovenia. I have had lots of those things mentioned by policymakers. When you go to sending countries and transit countries, you hear gossip and talk about, oh, these migrants, they want the best of both worlds. You know, the country has been difficult, they ran away. Now they want the opportunities of dual citizenship and they want the red carpet. So to me, there is more work to be done in the area of arguing and making up the virtues of the role of diaspora in development. I make another point, this is specifically to policymakers, that to go through that stage, it is a semi-emotional process. It is not entirely a rational process. The rational process is the raw evidence of the role of migrants and development. But in this world of professionalism, we have all sort of boxed ourselves in a corner that we cannot be professional and emotional. We just think that we make decisions on reason alone. The neurological evidence is overwhelming. That is not true. Many of the big decisions we make, even at the biggest on the biggest topics in the world involve our investing ourselves as people into those subject matters. So I urge policymakers, NGOs, and governments to look at the question in terms of convincing themselves that it is indeed the case that the migrants and diaspora need to be supported. To look at it perhaps in the case of individuals they know and the story of the migrant who left to earn, learn, or yearn, and what little they have, they contribute to lift families out of poverty. Linked to that point, and this is another point I tried to emphasize this time in October at the high-level dialogue, on the question of, are migrants and diaspora, are they any good at this development thing? Are they effective? Are they efficient? And our argument is yes, and not only yes, but that in many cases, they are far more efficient than the formal structures we have within NGOs and government institutions. This is quite a big statement to say that these formal structures, diaspora and migrant input, may be more efficient. But again, this is the statement I make, and this is the statement I say is evidenced by a lot of the literature and what we can observe empirically. I would just illustrate it by bringing your attention to one simple fact. Almost every major NGO and multilateral institution in the world have accepted that they have up to now failed in eliminating chronic poverty. Yet, most of us can attest to the fact that we have seen individual migrants in one single generation, sometimes in a period of 5 to 15 years, to lift not only their families, but their extended families out of poverty. This is one person lifting family out of poverty. Thus, that's why if you look at the evidence of remittances, 80 to 90% of it is spent on subsistence, that is food to avoid starvation, education, health, the real social investment that the MDGs want us to do. Well, migrants do it every day at a micro level, having an impact that is on aggregate much bigger than what the multilaterals accept they are failing on. I would move on the third point about giving support. I have just told you, in my view, of the evidence of how that single migrant has that big impact on poverty reduction and on development. Now, imagine how much more it would be if the skill, power, influence, and wherewithal of government, big NGOs came to support that person. This is why it is in the interest of migrants and diaspora to work through the problems and difficulties of engaging with institutions, because that institutional support would help lift the barriers and to multiply in big grades the impact of their input. It also begins to deal with some of the structural imperfections and negative effects of migration and dysfunctional migration. And I would illustrate that point with the example given by Marx of, say, remittances. So you have a migrant who sends back remittances to lift their extended family out of poverty. But those in that community who do not have migrants to send them money now become the new poor, excluded, and there's elements of inequality. What then you do with institutional support and a cross-sectoral working is you can work around maybe creating tax reliefs out of remittances, maybe through promoting collective remittances that would be used to address the needs of other members of the community who don't have remitters amongst them. And again, we have case studies of these things being done. The dysfunctionality of this is so strong that you do see in communities from Bangladesh to Eritrea, where people will sell land to send usually a son to become a migrant. They send a people trafficker, illegal person, to become a migrant so that they send remittances. They do not use that money to invest, say, in a business, for that business to generate income locally. We have reached the stage of what I call dysfunctional migration. It's only with the work of institutions and a bigger cross-cutting level that we can bring about a sort of approach to deal with that level of dysfunctionality. Tomorrow we'll have the chance. Unfortunately, I need to be back in London, so I regret very much not to be with you tomorrow. But we have the chance to discuss the manifesto points that has been published. One of the people from BIDC who worked on this with Michael is Nadia, who will be joining you. But she did call to my attention that perhaps I should make some remark on especially the priority on diaspora enterprise. One of the points I just wanted to call attention to, yes, you have as many opportunities for the diaspora to be enterprising and to create new enterprises, new businesses, to create jobs, and to create what economists call the multiplier effect. If a migrant opens, I don't know, a restaurant, the benefit is not only to the 4 staff that they employ, but those 4 staff use their wages to pay rent, to buy beautiful shoes, and to do their hair on Saturday. The people who do the hair and sell the shoes have also earned, and that bit they use to pay for school fees and to go to the theater. The theater, there are actors at the theater, and the teachers also got paid. This is what economists describe as the multiplier effect. It is so powerful that when it does not exist, governments create it. And most of Keynesian economics was based on this. And that is why after World War II, the Marshall Plan and the Keynesian theories came into play, whereby huge sums put into major infrastructure work to create jobs so that people use it to spend, and you have the multiplier effect. I'm saying to you, there is a great deal of untapped resources and opportunity around the multiplier effect on migrant enterprises. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope that we will have an opportunity also to debate a little bit later with the thesis that you opened. And our next speaker is Charito Basa with the presentation Migration, Development and Activist Perspective. Let me tell you just a few words about our guest. She is a researcher and trainer of women's migrant empowerment and founder of the Filipino Women's Council, a Filipino women's organization providing services for specific Filipino migrants' women's needs, and she's based in Rome, Italy. So, Charito, please, would you like to sit here? It would be better for you, or what do you prefer?
It's okay.
Shall we open your presentation? Or?
Hello. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm really very happy to be here, but I'm kind of shaking, so you have to deal with me. I am in a very different situation at this very moment. I'm like 8,000 miles from my brother who is not very well. And so I cannot promise I can deliver, but I will try to do my best. And I'm really very grateful of what the previous speaker was talking about, because he was talking about the macro level. Now, let us get into a very concrete experience of the second biggest Filipino community in Europe, living in Italy. The biggest one is in England, yes. And I have actually some problems with the title, an activist perspective. At times I'm an activist, but this time probably I want to be an active, development worker on the issues of migration and development. Is it like here? Okay. Yeah. Very, very briefly, the Filipino migrants in Italy are mostly women and are working as domestic workers, babysitters, and caregivers. Some of them are in hotels and restaurants. In the UK, they're mostly in the services as well, no? And healthcare, yes. Some of our Filipinos in the northern part of Italy are working in factories. This is not a very new data, but I just wanted to, show you a bit of information and data. We have founded the Filipino Women's Council in 1991, and that was before the UN Conference on Population Development, where I was the only civil society who was there. My first orientation is to monitor Chapter 10, International Migration, and I was saying, why do you care about our remittances? That's our money. Okay, let me remind everyone again. This is my question and my activist hat. If the remittances are supposed to solve the problem of underdevelopment in our countries of origin, are we supposed to be the actors? So it's just, some questions that I'm taking up now. So lobby and advocacy, from the ICPD in 1994 to the Human Rights Conference in Vienna in 1994 also.
Yes.
Yes. And the 1995 UN Conference on Women, the Fourth World Conference on Women, where the platform for action, the very draft of it, there was no mention about migrant women. Everything was women, women, women. There was no migrant women. So you know what we did? I was part of the ECE, but a lot of German foundations, they so loved my being so open. And they said, let us bring it to New York. So I was like pounding my, hands there. And I said, not all the women are women from Europe or women. There are migrant women. So we were able to successfully insert or influence the platform for action. And I think, because it's been like almost 20 years ago, we were able to integrate 24 paragraphs that dealt on the rights and recognition that women are also migrants and children are also migrants. Okay, and that's advocacy. But the most important work that we did at the grassroots level was do a lot of research on the condition of the Filipino women, specifically in Italy. And we called it community action research. When people come, researchers come, experts, university graduates, PhDers, or whatever, they come to us and interview us. And then they disappear. And we don't even know what happened to the researchers. So I was saying, so this is another Mona Lisa case. You know what the Mona Lisa case is? You know the song Mona Lisa by, who's that? No, yes, but the Mona Lisa song. Yes, there's a phrase like, they just lie there and they die there. So he said, there were plenty of researchers who came to us, but who came to me, because, after all my UN lobby works, but they disappeared. We never learned from what they did, So what we did our own. We trained our own, our members. We borrowed the brains of the Filipinos working at the UN in Rome. and we asked them to train us in how to do the research, how to do the analysis, and it is within the community, so it's, you know, community action research. Two other important projects that we did, which we considered milestones, and I do not know if I would have the chance to, you know, discuss further on this, but you were also saying, and Max was saying, you know, maximizing, harnessing, but we called it like maximizing the gains and minimizing the social cost of migration. As you said, there are, especially if those who are migrating are women, leaving their children behind and their families behind and their husbands behind, to come to Europe or to Italy to take care of other children, of Italian children. There are social costs, and there is no amount of money that can pay for the absence of the mother. And I hope, you know, in understanding and recognizing the migrants is, you know, you look at the gender perspective of it as well. Women and children are the highest, you know, they are the mostly affected on these issues of migration. The third project actually is a UN-funded project also, and we went into enterprises. But then if we have the chance, and I can also elaborate on that further. So this was our first research action. From the very title, you would see that there are problems already. Social problems coming out here. Issues of remittances, issues of children not performing well in schools because the mother is in Italy, and many other things. Another one, we were actually hired by the United Nations Institute for Research and Training for the Advancement of Women to do a research on the impact of remittances on rural development. I will not have the chance to explain further on this, but this is downloadable from the website, and then you can also write to me. But we will discuss, you know, some problematic areas on this. And this one, very micro, very innovative. The funding agencies would really love it. Remittances and indebtedness of Filipinos in Italy, which we actually discovered, let me just go very quickly, when we were implementing this project. We were doing financial education because we were using the money of the ECUN, Joint Migration and JMDI Development Initiative. And we were doing the training of trainers. We have selected leaders from different Filipino organizations across Italy, and we did the training of trainers. I was the coordinator of the project, but I was one of the trainees. I was one of those supposed to be the trainers. Our partners who trained us are from the Philippines, and they have worked for over 10 years with families of migrants, those families left behind. So we were taught how to manage our remittances, budgeting, savings, investment, and so on and so forth. But it's not about money only. Again, the title of the project was Maximizing the Gains and Minimizing the Social Cost of Migration. And we had to address family problems because fact of the matter is Philippine migration have destroyed families. That's one of the most painful costs. It has destroyed families. Separation, I mean, you know, long years of separation. I was lucky because I left, I was not married. I don't have the problem, but many, and majority, over 50% of the Filipino women in Italy are mothers, and not all of them have their children and their families with them. I just wanted to keep, you know, reminding everyone about that. So we did the research, Because when we were doing financial education, financial literacy, so, okay, let's work on budgeting. And so we worked on a financial planner which was provided to us by our partner in the Philippines. And we were teaching them how to do the budget, and they said, oh, but I cannot save. Yes, I can do the budget, but I cannot save. Why? I'm still paying debts. Debts. And you mentioned about that. Those who have resources to sell in their countries of origin, they sell their lands so that one member could go abroad. Well, if they don't have resources, they don't have properties to sell, they borrow money. Okay? So just before leaving the Philippines, they are already indebted. And this is the majority. But we have agreed on a definition of over-indebtedness. It refers to the inability of the household to service or pay off its debt, resulting in economic and social distress. I mean, it's not bad to borrow money, no? We borrow money. Businessmen also borrow money to add up to capital. But when you are economically and socially distressed, then that's really bad. Why we did it is because we wanted to gather solid data. We wanted to document it. Within the community and also in the Philippines, it's like it's an anecdote. They murmur, oh, I borrowed money. But we cannot talk about it openly. And so we said, let us document it. And if it is on the rise, and if yes, why? And what are the effects on migrants and families and on their migratory projects? When I left, I said, I promised my mother, 5 years, mother, and I'm going home. I've been in Italy for 27 years. I mean, it's not easy to go back. I mean, And, another objective is to encourage even more studies and awareness, raise the awareness of the issues of over-indebtedness. Do they talk about indebtedness within migrant communities here or in countries where you are? They don't. It's taboo. We also wanted to enrich the knowledge, our own knowledge, no? And other groups towards the issues, and also find appropriate policies and programs that would help avoid over-indebtedness. So we continue to do our financial literacy, actually, when funds are available. But the European Union said, we funded you already. We want innovative projects. When projects are working, they said, but you had the money already, you cannot do it again. I'm going to the problem of sustainability, and if money of the European Union is actually changing people's lives. Okay, let's change the topic very briefly. Okay, I have here on this page, I have like 134,145 Filipinos officially sent through the bank. This is through the bank channels. 712 million in 2011. When I look at the data of last year, it was 337 million only because of the economic crisis, of course. But let us compare my community with that of the Romanian, which is almost 1 million, and they only sent 800 million. So this was actually the time when I said, where are this money coming from? 712 million. They were actually borrowed. Okay? Of course, this is a very sensitive issue. Nobody wants to talk about how indebted they are. So we were only able to get 23 women and 9 men who were willing to be interviewed. And interviewing these people took us 1 year. We had to persuade them, we have to tell them, you know, we're not going to use your name. We're not even going to tell your stories. We just want, you know, some data to start up. Their salaries are between 700 and 1,400. They're all domestic workers, okay? All of these 32 overseas Filipino workers have had a total of 114 loans. And we also interviewed, these are all in-depth interviews. Interviews lasted from 1 hour to 2 hours. Because they started to cry and they started to tell their stories. We had key informants, even bankers, even Filipino migrant leaders, who said that 90% of their members are actually indebted. Very, very quickly, of course, the women. The women below, if you could see, they are the most indebted. And they're very productive age, of course, you know. They can borrow or they can, yes, they can borrow money because they're working. The roles, the females are, were and are, and I think are the breadwinners, the main earners in the family. And how many dependents in the Philippines? You see, extended families as well. History. When they started to, this is very interesting, and they said, but why from the 1980s until the 1990s they were not borrowing? Because banks were not giving services to migrants yet. You see? This is like, I think this is the globalization at its peak. You know, it was like picking up, selling, you know, services, bank services. And 2000 almost doubled, huh? These were the people who arrived in these years. Okay, sources of loans. Friends from the Philippines, those who left the Philippines because they had to pay, you know, their agents, all their expenses. Friends and employers, they don't charge interest rates. Actually, like employers, they would ask their employers to advance the payment because they have to send money because the father is sick or, you know, somebody, there's an emergency, okay? Then again, I will connect about these issues to what you were saying earlier, substituting formal structures, okay? Informal lenders. There were actually 10 Filipinos who were arrested because they were, you know, giving loans to their co-Filipinos for huge interest rates, like 10% per month. I was happy they were arrested. But you know, I was waiting for the judge to call me because I do translation and interpretation. You know, that's why I know all these issues, you know. And there are actually informal lenders we're saying are Filipinos. Banks and microcredits. There are banks and microcredits, and they're not actually charging a lot. But look below, financial institutions. The Italians would probably agree with me that borrowing from Compass, from Neos, doesn't require you so much papers and so much guarantees. These are the ones who are actually, you know, lending money so easily, like within 24 hours. No guarantee. Of course, the Filipinos would go there. So we have 3 types of, you know, borrowers that we interviewed. We had the fallen. I had a very nice thing about the fallen. The fallen are actually those who are who cannot sustain anymore. You know, to be able. The fallen are to be able to survive. They really have to continue borrowing. Okay, and but the flyers, they borrow money, but they invest the money they borrowed. The tightrope walkers, we call it, like, you know, those in the middle. They have occasional debt, but are already entering into, a very dangerous zone. This is interesting. Again, the fallen, I will repeat, the fallen are those who are continue borrowing, no? They borrow money to pay off debts, previous debts. They cannot, if they don't continue to borrow, they will not survive anymore. The fallen, they spend so much on consumer goods. This includes Apple, iPad, iPhone, stuff like this and stuff like, what young Europeans and Americans have. But this is globalization. What they see on television is what they get, of course, no? The tightrope walkers, they spend more on consumer goods. Without really going into details, let's go to the flyers, and its color olive green is on housing, and it's investment, okay? Education, where's education? Education and immigration costs. You talk about that, no? Sometimes they borrow money, they sell their land so that another family member would go abroad to help them, maintain the family and the extended family back home. So this is really what's happening. But there are three drivers of indebtedness of migrants. Maintaining a transnational family. Like I have my husband here, but I have my brothers and my sisters and my nieces who are studying in the universities. I have to send them money because that's investment, because I am supposed, and especially why women, it's because the women who have the natural conviction of providing, of serving the family, of giving, of loving and taking care of, the families. Remittances has a negative impact on dependence. Many families in the Philippines stopped working because they receive money monthly from abroad. Okay? And consumerism and vices. And of course, entrepreneurship, financial management. They eat up, mismanagement, They don't know how to manage businesses. And that's one problem. We can talk of entrepreneurship, migrant entrepreneurship for the whole day, but are they real entrepreneurs? That needs to be, discussed properly. The second driver, or the second driver of indebtedness of the Filipino community is the condition in the Philippines. The high cost of living, education, and here again, a high cost of quality education and healthcare. It's not like in Europe. You have to pay for everything. So thanks to those remittances, and of course, migrants would be indebted because they would want to save the lives of those that they care about. The appreciation and unemployment and underemployment. And of course, the third driver is why do people borrow money from financial institutions instead of banks? Banks don't trust the migrants, probably. They should start trusting the migrants so that they can have access to good credit, affordable. The high cost of living and, of course, the effects of the economic crisis. In Italy, as you all know, is one of those hardly hit. When I was actually talking about discovering the over-indebtedness of Filipinos, I was talking to a friend who was visiting me from the United States, and I was talking about, the positive picture of remittances is that migrants and their families are not poor anymore. Children can go to school. They can have better homes that could not be destroyed by typhoons. But unfortunately, with the recent typhoon we had, the strongest homes were also destroyed. But anyway, and many of them were able to access to luxury goods and SUVs. You should have. Has anybody been to the Philippines? No. There were like Italian villages there. They call Italian villages. Not that the houses looked like Italian houses, but it's because they were made of, their hard work from Italy. But anyway, and they have very nice homes, and they have domestic workers as well, and they have everything imported from Italy inside the house. Anyway, that's positive. Okay, that's investment. But then I was talking about the pains and sacrifices. And so that appears to be like a cloudy sky already. What is the financial balance sheet of this Filipina domestic worker? That was what I was finding out during my work. And so I continued on drawing, and I said, what is the financial institutions doing here? Who's earning? Who's making money? Who's making profit? And what do these institutions play? I mean, what role do they play? I would like to question also, and I will end here, what does government and regulatory institutions play? I mean, this is, do they contribute? Do they sustain the practice? We all know, because when I was making the presentation of the same study in Italian, the Italian said, but we're also over-indebted. He said, so what do we do? What do we ask our government? Do we prevent it? Are they actually practicing good ethics or good values? And all of this in the name of remittances. If we sum it all up, the 712 million euros sent by Filipinos through the banks in 2011, the majority of them are borrowed. But when we go home, like every time I go home, I have 2,000 cash. It did not go through the bank. So how much money could have gone, back home from the Filipino community in Italy, which is actually borrowed, was the biggest question. And that was what we wanted to raise in this study. When I first published this on Facebook and in the internet, the Filipinos from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, United States, Germany, they said, oh my God, they said, oh my God, it's like here. So it's probably not only in Italy. I would end up my presentation here. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Charito, for this very powerful presentation. And also, although it was totally concentrated, which is normal to the Filipino diaspora in Italy, it's a universal in a way, all this situation of indebted migrants and indebtedness as a condition of modern capitalistic society is very actual, I think, and it is very important to think about it. And now we are going to our third presentation by Angela Odai from Diaspora Support Unit from Ghana. And it's interesting that this is a governmental institution, and Charito is just raising the question, why do we have governments then? if the structural problems are not solving, and if we are in a way thinking about remittances as individual help from person to person and from family to family, and this is not like both previous speakers exposed, it's not a structural help, it's not institutional help. So it's not that I'm asking you now to answer all these questions, it's just interesting that we have somebody from some kind of governmental institution that you can tell us also your part of the story and your understanding of all these issues.
Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I work for the Diaspora Support Unit under the Legal and Consular Bureau, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Ghana. right now from Eastern Asia, from all the expositions we've had so far, there has come the crucial need for us to know how to support the integral subject of today, the diaspora. Based on this, I'll go straight to what Ghana does and Ghana's engagement. I asked the question, is there any need for the diaspora to be supported in the very first place? Is there really a need for any government, any society, for any assistance of any kind? And my answer to it is yes. One, diaspora assists us with poverty reduction, and that is beyond any reasonable doubt. Any kind of remittance, social or financial, which a diaspora commits to their country of origin is good and very crucial. It's either to alleviate some kind of social nuisance, some cankers in the society, and it prevents a whole lot of criminal cases and then deaths. So I would say for poverty reduction, the diaspora needs to be supported because they in turn are doing they first began and they are doing a good job with that. Then again, we could look at our manufacturing industries. Most diaspora come to work in the industrialized world. Given their expertise and their former experience and their experience with both worlds, they are able to come back to the countries of origin, like Ghana for example, and then practice similar enterprises. It might be small though, but the effect is still multiple, like he said. Then we have the direct personal involvement. For example, you have an earner in maybe Dallas who is Ghanaian. He comes to Ghana to come and assist Ghana with our flights and then our technical problems, though now we don't have a national flight going. So then again, we have the diaspora being a better cost-effective method of developing our country. In a sense that, for example, in Ghana, we have teamed up, the Diaspora Support Unit has been able to collaborate with certain agencies, organizations, for example, Newmont Ghana. And what they do is, instead of hiring expatriates to Ghana, since that would be more cost productive, what they do is they open up another form of advertisement for the Ghanaian diaspora who qualify in the same sense. This way, what happens is they don't pay them expatriate allowance, but then again, they still don't pay them the local kind of salaries. So it goes far as well, so far as our economy is concerned. So, how is Ghana really bridging the gap on or connecting to its diaspora? Ghana as a nation has been, since 1957, independent, and since 1957 we started with our diplomatic missions. Through every Commonwealth country, our missions are known as high commissions, and then any other country we are known as embassies. So far, Ghana has 57 embassies since 1957 till date. And what happens is that Ghanaians who are in trouble one way or the other liaise with their diplomatic missions. So far, we noticed that the liaison has not been so good because it's either been a visa issue, a passport issue, or a kind of residence, residence, anything got to do with citizenship, should I say. But the trade is not really, wasn't going like it was supposed to. The liaison wasn't so strong. Politically, it wasn't so strong. Therefore, the government of Ghana saw the need to further, in a better way or a more ad hoc manner, proactive manner, engage its diaspora. So in 2010, the government of Ghana went to the International Organization for Migration, and then they collaborated to form what we call the Diaspora Engagement Project. Within this project, there was a feasibility which was run. Naturally, it's quite easy for Africans to move within the continent. And so most Africans move within the continent as migrants. However, what Ghana wanted to do was to be able to contact in an easier manner its diaspora, because there, for example, you go to Nigeria and you want a data on Ghanaian migrants, and it will be difficult for you to research and then find. You would, however, get some Ghanaian associations, but that would be all. But for detailed data and analysis, we decided to go beyond the African continent. So a feasibility study was run, and then we came to the conclusion that the 5 pilot countries we chose, which had the major concentration of Ghanaians, were the UK, the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, and then the United States of America. Here, we went down to the people. We found out Ghanaian associations which were not on our missions or embassies contact list. We found out student networks, alumni. We found out just about any information about any Ghanaian grouping. Here, we brought them together, had video conferencing, found out their challenges and what they were going through. So here, we began a liaison of a sort, and then the Ghanaian government got to know exactly what was thorny so far as Ghanaians abroad were concerned. In spite of that, we have the TRQN, which is a project with the Netherlands embassy, both in Ghana and in the Royal Netherlands. It's the temporary return of qualified nationals. This has been going on since the year 2005. So far, 30,000 Ghanaians have been able to benefit from this program. It has 2 ways. It's a two-tier program. First, we invite health professionals from Ghana to the Netherlands, and then they gain extra further training in their specific fields, be it a doctor, a community health worker, a public health worker. It cuts across a laboratory technician, anybody in the health sector. We pick up a few people, take them to the Netherlands for training, and then bring them back. Then in turn, we search out for Ghanaian professionals, health professionals in the Netherlands, in the various fields again in health, bring them down to Ghana. They work for a period ranging from 1 month to 6 months. Here we give them stipends, and then they train in the rural villages, the rural communities, and then the public hospitals. After that, they go back to Netherlands. What happens here is that we are trying as much as possible for them to decide which of the nations they would prefer living in. Talking to the diaspora made us understand that diaspora have a lot of fears. They have the fear of reintegrating into their society, whether they will be welcome, whether they are qualified enough, whether they will be able to adjust to the systems all over again. Any kind of reintegration is difficult, and that is one thing we always made the diaspora understand. So this has been going on from 2005 up to date, and so far 30,000 Ghanaians have benefited. So the government of Ghana signed another contract with the Royal Netherlands Embassy. This time we opened it up, and that was when the temporary return of qualified nationals project came about. That one was a bigger project, a much broader project. It didn't have to do with health. It had to do with any other profession. So we brought in journalists, we brought in IT technicians, carpenters, just about anybody who was good in their field or who had been on a particular field training for some time. Then we brought them to Ghana. That one ranges from 1 month to 3 months, and then they go back, just for them to make informed decisions as to whether they would want to come back to Ghana. Then finally, during the diaspora engagement project, there came a consensus that there was the need for a coordinating body or an information body, whereby any Ghanaian abroad who needs information on a new policy which has been passed, laws, the various public institutions could contact that unit, and then they in turn will give them the kind of information or assistance that they desire. Hence the formation of the Diaspora Support Unit on 1st November 2012. So the Diaspora Support Unit became operational. However, learning from lessons learned, We had once had a diaspora support, a diaspora ministry under the Ministry of Tourism. However, with a change of governments, it faded out and it couldn't work. Further on, the government of Ghana tried again with the Joseph project. That one too was at the presidency. However, it didn't work. Based on these, what we did was we liaised with the foreign ministry is at the forefront, hosting the diaspora support unit. However, it doesn't belong to the foreign ministry. It is just hosting it, reason being that diaspora always contacts Ghana through its missions first. Then we have the Bank of Ghana, we have other stakeholders teaming up with the diaspora support unit. We call them project stakeholders. So we have the Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ghana Investment Promotion Center, we have the Ministry of Health, we have the Ministry of the Interior, we have the Ghana Immigration Service, and then we have the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. All these were discovered as a result of the video conferencing we did. We noticed the sticky points where Ghanaians have trouble dealing with these institutions. At the harbours, we noticed a lot of Ghanaians had problems clearing out their goods from the harbour, either as a result of high taxes or seizure of goods and they being auctioned, or Ghanaians having problems with citizenship. Maybe a Ghanaian has married a Russian, they are back to Ghana, and then the citizenship of the spouse becomes a problem, as in they obtaining the right of abode or they obtaining some kind of legal documentation to enable them stay. So all these things are being deliberated upon and we are still holding it up. The reason why we formed the Project Stakeholder Committee. What we have done was that the diaspora support unit was mandated to do a few things. The very first objective is for us to be able to engage Ghanaians abroad and then mobilize them towards the country's socio-economic development, one way or the other. The second one is for us to be a one-stop kind of information machinery, whereby anyone who calls me, any Ghanaian who is able to call the diaspora support unit to find out about taxes, to find out about how to bring people to Ghana, maybe to come and do a charity work or something, how to organize it, how to go about it, the institutions to contact. Then again, we are also promoting dialogue between the governmental institutions and the members and Ghanaians abroad. Reason being that most Ghanaians abroad have issues with governmental institutions, with this bureaucracy issue. Then we have this kind of, should I say, rumor, or there's a little bit of truth in it anyway. Comparatively, the government institutions are a bit slow-paced when it comes to getting things done. So a lot of Ghanaians abroad still have issues with them. So we are able to help facilitate their efforts to make things easier for them. For example, a Ghanaian decides, I want to come and register a business, or I want to enter into business, I'm an entrepreneur, but I don't know which field is right for me, I don't know where to go to. Once the person calls and we're able to give the person guidance. Through the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, for example, we could tell you that into agriculture, for example, any Ghanaian abroad could enter into the field of livestock and fishery. Reason being that the government of Ghana has these incentives there. Anybody who ventures into agriculture or fishery has a 10-year tax-free operation. You could work for 10 years in that field without the government of Ghana taxing you on it. Then again, the government of Ghana could top up your capital by 30% for you to be able to start what the kind of project you want. Then again, in our energy sectors, we have information there too, that for 5 years, you wouldn't pay tax. So all these right areas are for the diaspora support unit to tap into and then give Ghanaians the required assistance that they might need, one way or the other. At the end of the program, at the end of the whole project, we are supposed to create a data bank of Ghanaians abroad. Not only create that data bank, but be able to collate it to read the specific fields. We should be able to have a detailed database whereby we could say that we have this number of Ghanaian dentists in the United Kingdom, we have this number of Ghanaian students studying in Asia, we have this and we have that. We should be able to break it down for us to know the actual number, not really specifics, but we should have an idea of the number of Ghanaians who are really living outside of Ghana. The Diaspora Support Unit then had the ball rolling. We decided to build up a website, a very detailed, informative website to reach to our clients, because a lot of Ghanaians abroad would definitely go to the computer to run any research that they might need on Ghana. So we have this informative website, GhanaianDiaspora.com, where we have information about ports, information on customs, we have information on citizenship, we have so much information there, any kind of information that is institutional, that we deem it fit for any Ghanaian abroad to know, we put it there. Then we advertise free of charge as well, any kind of job relevant for Ghanaians in the diaspora. We are able to post those there for them to be able to access them and then apply for them. We then have Ghanaian diaspora flyers. We send them to the various missions, the 57 missions worldwide. We then send them to our contacts. So far, we have contacts with 971 Ghanaian associations worldwide. What we do is we send them the e-version of the flyers and then our newsletters for onward distribution. Then we have the social media that we use. This is especially for Ghanaians who are really not a part of most associations, because they don't want to, one way or the other, maybe they are irregular, it could be as a result of their status. So we have the social media, Twitter and then Facebook working for them. We have Skype, and then we have phone numbers, emails, and so on, so that just any and all means that any Ghanaian could be able to reach out to us when they need help. Another thing we do to invite Ghanaians on board is that we have on our website two special pages. We have the Making a Difference page, and then we have the Returnee Story page. Every month we profile a Ghanaian living abroad, and then any Ghanaian living abroad who is impacting Ghana one way or the other. Maybe a Ghanaian lives abroad, but he's investing into Ghana, he's affecting a few lives, he's contributing to the welfare of some orphans in Ghana. We profile such a person. We ask him the sticky questions that no one really wants to answer. What are some of your challenges in dealing with Ghana? What were your strengths? How have you managed so far? Where did you solicit for help for you to attain this height? Then we paste it on the Making a Difference page. Then we go to a Ghanaian who has settled in Ghana and is doing good. Not necessarily overwhelmingly well off, but he's living an independent life. We then profile this person. I guess the first person we profiled was a welder. We profile this person and then put him there on the page, so that no matter the background of the Ghanaian diaspora, he will find a sense of belongingness once he gets to the page. We just want a way of making sure that they know it is difficult to come to Ghana. However, others are making it, for them to be encouraged to be able to make it as well. So far, since November 1st, 2012, we've been able to do a few things. We have held a webinar, an internet seminar, whereby we invited directors from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. We invited another director from the Ministry of the Interior, which is a very tricky issue because every kind of migration issue is an interior issue. So we invited someone from the Ministry of the Interior, and then we invited someone from the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. Over here, we gave passwords to all Ghanaians who had said yes to it on either our website or our Facebook pages. So we had in all 185 Ghanaians participating in the webinar. Here we gave the resource people the chance to talk, explain what the ministry does, what government have as incentives for the people, because most of them are still lurking in the dark. They don't know the kind of ripe areas, and they don't know exactly what institution is there and for what. So we decided to raise awareness using this medium. So we made the people talk, we made the resource people talk, and then we opened up the lines for any other Ghanaian to ask their questions. This lasted for 3 hours, and it was unfortunate, but we couldn't really fix a good time because of the time issues that we have. It's either you fix a time here and people in Latin America are asleep, or others are at work. We had it in the afternoon, we've had it so far in the afternoons, and I would call it quite promising that for 185 participants, it's quite a good show. Then we started the collation of processing the data bank. I told you about the 971 associations for the schools, the networks, and all that we have gathered. Then we've been able to assist a Ghanaian foundation based in Switzerland to clear 2 ambulances free of tax to give us donation to some hospitals in rural areas. We've provided support to Gubawi in the United Kingdom. There's this program held every year by a Ghanaian who lives there. She profiles Ghanaians who have made it remarkably all over the world, and then she gives them awards. She solicits for funds, and then she gives them award, and she's highly backed by the British High Commission. So far, Guba has been able to donate 1,650 pounds sterling to autism awareness centers in Ghana. So we've been able to facilitate that as well. We've had a lot of Ghanaian diaspora investment opportunities coming in. We've been able to give others legal assistance through, we have the legal aid whereby you will be directed to see a lawyer to give you advice in trade and investment, especially when you're dealing with foreign counterparts and all free of charge. When you don't have that money, we've been able to facilitate that. And then we've been able to organize our very first Ghanaian Diaspora Business Summit. We did this summit, reason being that throughout, we have a map that we use. We have a kind of tally data form that we fill at the end of each day. We tally and find out what the number of visitors we have, the medium they use, whether Skype, be it personal visits, phone calls, and the like. And then we find out again the subject of their visit, why they visited. Based on this, we noticed that the issue of entrepreneurship was very high. The normal Ghanaian really wants to invest. They've got that desire, but they don't know how to do that. So we held a Ghanaian Diaspora Business Summit, and we partnered with a Ghanaian bank, Unibank, who gave us 70% of our budget. We had it at the Accra International Conference Center. We invited Ghanaians who have once lived abroad and are home, and then we invited Ghanaians who are on vacation, summer vacation in Ghana, who happen to be there. We invited all of them. We had a good turnout of a little bit over 300 participants, and then it went well because we are having loads of feedback. So far, we've been able to solicit for support of a kind from the African Diaspora Policy Center in The Hague. We've been able to solicit for the expert support for 3 years for the Diaspora Support Unit. What this agency does is supports new diaspora ministries springing up in Africa. So far we've had one session with an expert, with our stakeholders, whereby they train us, they find out the lessons we've learned, our challenges and the like, and then we move on from there to
Western Union. Nobody knows it. They said, no, I don't know. But they have an agreement with us, they don't know. We can't live with the virtual world, actually. We wanted to invite them last year for migration, May 21, for migration, so that the banks also come. My good friend Charito has been saying 700 million when it was sent to Filipino. The Western Union takes a certain amount of at least nearly, it's a problem. And Africans, Asians, when they collect, when they send 15 billion, 20 billion, or 25 billion, most of the transaction, the amount of transaction paid in 2009, Western Union gained 1 billion from the migrants. So I think policy making accountable to everybody, like investment banks, to be pragmatic, and if there is such a way, so that migrant organization can share, including here, developing new businesses. Just on the other hand, I think migrants, we have been seen as a developer, but sometimes just one part. Migrants also live because they have to live, because of political problems. And for you, for example, governments in Africa like to get the data of all foreigners, not because they care, but because they are afraid about the political moves that comes from outside. It has to be also seen, you know? Yeah. Therefore, but I know Ghana is well, relatively Ghana. Therefore, just to think like that way also. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective. Please.
I am a Filipino.
Just a second, you will get a microphone.
I am a Filipino from Vienna, Austria. I attended here specifically to see my countrymen and what she has to report about the state of Filipinos in Italy. And what she painted, based on the statistics, is rather a sad picture of Filipino migrant women. If our government is doing nothing to help them, we should take the matter into our own hands.
That's why we're organizing.
Yeah? And that's the reason why you are organizing. In Austria, we have the same problem of sending money. But according to the statistics of the World Bank in 2010, there are 10 million Filipinos abroad who are sending money to the Philippines in the amount of $21 billion.
24 now.
24 now. Now it's 13, so 3 years ago was that. So can you imagine how much money goes to our country, but how does our government benefit from that? Yeah, you think so?
Yes.
In what way?
The last percentage of the money you send home, and your family doesn't get.
I'll give you the other picture of that. In the Philippines, there is a mushrooming of shopping malls. If you think of Filipinos who have no jobs in the Philippines, going abroad to find jobs, to finance their families at home, and where do their money go? To the shopping malls. And who own the shopping malls? The Chinese. And the money of their diaspora communities of Filipinos abroad end up in the Chinese economy. It's a sad picture. But then there's another book, one book written by, it's almost like it is true. It's not quite fiction in my opinion, but which the author claims, but it is quite true. It is a happy ending for a Filipino migrant who went abroad to work as a domestic worker in Singapore. The luck that she had was she was hired to be a nanny to 2 children. And in addition to being a nanny, maybe she can do some housework. And her employer was very happy with her because the employer, the wife said she has never seen her house in good order like it is when the house help came, when the Filipino domestic worker came. In addition, the children are very well behaved, well taken care of, and not a pain in the ass of most mothers. Yeah? And so, in the end, this Filipino domestic worker was brought to England because the families were retiring to England. And she was asked if she would like to come. And she said, well, as long as I can do the same thing you are doing, you taught me how to do and what to do, I'll come along. And so from the ages the children were born to the time they became teenagers, she was with them. And the happy ending is she got sick. And as she cannot work anymore, she couldn't stay there. But her employer sent her to the best doctors, paid for all the costs, and sent her home and asked if she needs money or any help, she should not hesitate to call them. She got well, and then the former employer visited her because he said they are very unhappy at home without her. Well, if you have a Filipina who takes care of the children, who cleans the house and everything, and cooks your meal, and prepare also your party for you, where will you find one such employee? And that was her luck. She found good employer. And her luck is, when she got well, she received pension from England for having worked there for so long as domestic helper to a family. And this pension, if you spend in the Philippines, €1 is 50 times. If she earned a pension of 800 times 50 is 45,000 pesos. Not even the president of the Philippines earned that money. That is the happy ending. Thank you.
Can I say something about how much the receiving government earns from the remittances of those migrants abroad? First of all, I'm sure you know that the Philippines is the only country that has the policy of exporting its labor. So the 10 million you're saying is true, and probably even more, because it is dependent on the dollar reserves. Otherwise, it would have been like very poor, like other Southeast Asian countries. 24 billion. You were saying the African diaspora sent 50 billion. The Filipinos, $24 billion. And so when Yolanda Haiyan, the typhoon, the super typhoon hit, the spokesperson of the president said, oh, the remittances, they're not actually helping. And they said, what? The 10 million Filipinos, through the social media. What? You have lots of dollars because, money went. You said, we are charged to send money from Slovenia to London, okay? So that's tax, number one. Your family will get the money from the London bank, and there's another tax. We do not know. I mean, I have not gone through, and the World Bank would not listen to me because they know I'm a pain in their ass. But the translation of pounds or dollars or euros into the local money, who is earning? Who is earning? And how much is that? Western Union. Western Union. I'm sorry for my African brothers and sisters. They are earning a lot of money. But do they give back? What is their contribution to our issues now? Like, you have to support our projects, entrepreneurship here, entrepreneurship there. Where are these banks? They lend you money. That's the thing. I mean, we have to make them responsible because not without our remittances, they would have never existed.
Okay, we have one hand there, and then Max.
Hello, I'm from Austria. I work in a women council center near to the Slovenian border. We are counseling women, and we have 50% women from abroad, foreigners. So what we see is that women all over the world, European or not European, they are in the almost same situation. And what I want to say here, besides from Western Union or something, I saw the conference in Vienna almost 1 year ago, and I think the steps we are making forward together are slowly, but what we should do is meet and know each other. So for me it's the first time I'm in Ljubljana, although it's only 3 hours with the train. Yeah? So it's, I think it's a great task for us to widen our eyes and to open up, and to what also Mr. Fahl said in the beginning, to forget the borders and to try to understand each other and to make better living all together.
Thank you very much. I think I want to add on to this social responsibility issue of the banks. I really think it's important. I always thought about it, but I've heard it in a slightly different way now. And I think we can actually call upon the banks to be more socially responsible, because we are actually, at the end of the day, talking about development, right? If we all agree that remittances definitely are important, and we have governments that have declared actually that development is also on their agenda, then I think we can call upon banks to be more socially responsible officially. That would be a proposal. But a similar issue also is the issue of pensions. Before I got my Slovenian citizenship, I don't know whether it's still the same today, I remember I worked here for quite a few years as an IT professional. And then when I wanted to find out, okay, fine, if I work for 2 more years, 3 more years, after 10 years, and then I go back to Zimbabwe, will I be able to get a pension? And the answer was no. Why? Because Zimbabwe at that time did not have a special agreement with Slovenia that would enable me as an individual to get my pension. I think that's daylight robbery as well. And this is, I think, a situation that a lot of migrants are still facing. I would like to commend, this community action research. I think it's really an inspiration. And I think this is a model that migrants, all over can and should be able to follow. This is something which certainly, personally, I'm going to take upon and discuss with other migrant organizations, so that we can, look at this as an inspirational example. But the question I have is regarding the reasons actually why migrants come over to, why people do migrate. We listened to the sad story of Filipino women in Italy. And so the question that came to me, and this question also came to me many times after talking to many African migrants in Slovenia. It seems to me as if before they migrate, they look at this as an investment actually. That's why communities, they gather money, or people go into debt. It's really an investment. Yes, that's what they have in their head that time, many a time. This is not the whole story, but part of the story. But as we all know in business, when you want to do an investment, it's good to do a risk analysis. But the risk analysis also, it helps to do a risk analysis if you have information. So my question is, what do they really have proper information, before they make this business decision to actually gather money or get into debt and then help somebody migrate? And if we think they don't, what are we doing as organizations or individuals to make sure that they have the proper information as to what they will face when they actually get to their countries of destination?
Everybody can answer that. But, yeah. But just very briefly, the Filipino migration is actually, like I think he said, is to earn, to learn, and to yearn. The thing is, when you're stuck, you have small children going to school, which is the case of many Filipinos, millions, not only in Southern Europe, Spain, Italy, France, Greece, Cyprus, but also in Southeast Asian countries, in Hong Kong. Many of them are actually indebted. And I think, in fact, we were asking, do we have the culture of money, We don't know how to use money. We don't know how to handle money. Which is true. It's true. Because what we found in our second research, the gender remittances and development and the impact of remittances, to rural development is that there is lack of planning. Planning, when you go abroad, I say 5 years. Okay, sons and daughters, I'll be away 5 years. We have to decide together. So there's actually lack of preparation on that. It's immediately going abroad and being rich. That is the perception in general. And then they are stuck. Domestic work, it's not actually high-paid job and so forth and so on. If they didn't know how to plan, they didn't know how to save. And to be able to respond to the needs of the family, especially to the children, to be able to fill the gap, they send material things. Materials. So this is because that's what we see on television. The problem has become, deeper because the extended family, the father got sick, and so would you allow your father to get sick? So you borrow money from employers and so on and so forth. But there's a lack of everything. There are a lot of Filipinos, for example, who have gone into entrepreneurship businesses. But even the family who is managing the business in the country of origin, they don't know how to manage businesses. So in our financial education, we not only have budgeting, savings, investment, but also a test on entrepreneurship. Are you really an entrepreneur? We're not like the Chinese. They know how to. But the thing is, that's why our actions are into that, financial literacy and addressing the social cost of migration and addressing the barriers to reintegration. I have heard the word twice from her. It's actually our dream to go home. Unless, even if I'm married to an Italian, I still want to go home. But we have to prepare for that. And I think that's where the government of origin, the government of host countries, we, the diaspora organizations, NGOs should work together. Because we cannot work alone. I started my work networking because that was my background, networking, knowing. Thank you for saying that. Learning from other experiences. At times in Italy, it's not possible to partner with local governments. In Rome, they don't have money, they're bankrupt. Sometimes we are seen as concorrente. How do you say that in English? Competitors to projects. We are accused by the European Union of not knowing how to write proposals, how to do the accounting. Of course, they never invested on us, But, this is the last call that I'm going to do. I'm sorry that the European Union representative is not here, but I had a one-on-one debate with him. I think he was the number 2 at the European Development Days in Poland. And I was calling upon that. I was at the GFMD, everywhere, repeatedly saying that. But the ball is in our hands, maybe. I think it's the diaspora organization who should learn, who should be trained, to be more courageous, to be more open. If they're closed, we knock on their doors. And that's what I do. We knock on their doors, Because this is going to continue anyway. So let's make things easier for us by partnership, genuine partnership. And of course, you cannot talk about migration without involving migrants themselves, because if it's for us, it must be us. I think I said that 20 years ago.
And certainly, I think that is the answer. And this conference is to help make it easier for migrants and the diaspora to work with all other institutions. Now, we must do this realizing that it's not perfect. That us, migrants and diaspora in our organizations at what we do, we get many things wrong, just as the government does and everyone else. That is why we're creating the partnership to reduce all of those negatives. And for the things that go wrong, my general approach is this. we have to take a very enlightened approach to it. Otherwise, we find ourselves overtaken by the negative things, because wrong things are painful. So it's very easy for it to take us over. So, but when we are involved in development and doing work, we must purposefully and intentionally focus on what we can do. Because if we're interested in just the problems, then we can stay at home and moan about it. But the reason why we're coming is so that we focus on solving them. Now, within that approach, I think you will find the examples we've seen in the case studies just shows how the power of partnership and coordination helps. From Slovenia sending a ship to help with avoiding the smuggling of people over the Mediterranean, to Ghana moving from different experiments of diaspora support within its ministries, to the excellent study about Filipinos in Italy, funded by JMDI. I sit on that board, and that's a partnership of 5 UN agencies and IOM with money from the EU. All of it just shows that there are big issues that you can only handle by getting everyone sort of playing together. And some of those problems have been mentioned here, be it, say, the heavy fees that Western Union or other multinationals charge, or the bank's reluctance to engage, or some governments not allowing portability of social security rights. All of those things are up for debate and up for change, but it's about whether one is organized and have a coalition of people. I am no friend of Western Union. I ran projects in which I try to break their monopoly, and successfully in some countries. There are some countries, for example, I never use Western Union because I live in the United Kingdom and I have options. So the argument is, well, we can argue about, oh gosh, they're taking all of our money, or we can do things to create options. Now, in some countries in Africa and other parts of the world, Western Union used to have what was called a tied-in. So if you are a financial institution, you're working with Western Union, you have an exclusivity order that you cannot work with any more than transfer organization. Nigeria outlawed it, Sierra Leone outlawed it, many other places outlawed it, and now in Africa virtually that doesn't exist in many places because there's plurality. That happens because diaspora and migrant organizations in coalition with other partners are campaigning on these issues. I'm in Central Eastern Europe, so I need to be careful what I say. And I know my friend here, Eyacho, is an unreformed socialist. But the Western Union is capitalism, and the global economy to a great degree is run on capitalist terms. Again, I have the option of standing on the sidelines and blaming these greedy capitalists who's taking my money, by the way, and doing all these evil things, or make sure that they don't get my money. But we have to give a great deal of respect to the capitalists. They know how to get your money. Every day they know how to get your money. And you just have to study the history of Western Union to know it was a cable company selling messages, telegrams.
Yes.
But it knew at some point that it's sending money. Right now, as we speak, they're thinking in 50 years, what is it that's important to send? And they would be in that business. My thinking in diaspora is we have to compete, we have to do things well, and it is not enough to mourn about it. And just a last comment, all of it that underlies it, I think, is this is coming back to policy. What we've got with the high-level dialogue is everybody now accepts the nexus, migration and development, and everybody now is accepting the role of not only active migrants, but settled migrants who have more money. I think now, and people are pushing this, I'm pushing it, many people are pushing it, is just to have a very simple, clear definition of that nexus. And it runs something along these lines, that migration should help socio-economic development, should advance socio-economic development. And socio-economic development should make migration a choice, not a desperate necessity. So this is roughly the aim of the nexus, which many institutions can agree, and you just go to work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela, you wanted also to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add up to another thing. I would have to encourage each and every one of us to try as much as possible, do more research into our various specializations or interest areas so far as migration is concerned, and then publish. The more you write, the more people get to know, the more people get information, the more people get to understand concepts. Because so many, you could realize that, especially, for example, in Ghana, you could realize that majority of the people just do not get the issue of you trying to support diaspora. They just don't get it. The only thing we could do is to produce more books, create that kind of awareness, make it easily accessible, so that in your own small way, people are able to access those materials, read them, get information, acquire knowledge. Based on that, you'll be able to understand the concepts better, and then your organization, or whatever it is that you want to do, will be easier to do. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norris Jones. I'm originally from Jamaica. Before I came here, I lived in London for 7 years. But I came here in 2008 with my wife from London. She's Slovene. And when I came here, the experience that I have in this country was quite frightening. Not only the experience, but the awareness and the openness of Slovenian people was quite shocking to me. Not that I'm discriminating or criticizing, but I think that, in my opinion, that if a country decided to support integration or migration, the first step they should have made is that they should try to educate their populace. The problem is that I found that a lot of the people weren't educated about other cultures. They used to similar culture, like for example Croatia, and they're the same people. But when another culture comes in the country, for example from Africa, this is a different scenario, totally different. They are not prepared to deal with this. They don't understand us. We have a better understanding because we were colonized. So therefore we have an understanding of white culture. But in Slovenia they don't, or in this region they don't. And it was so shocking that to me that I had some domestic problems that I had to go in the social department and also in the court. And the way that they have dealt with me in the social department, I have 2 children, and I could not believe that a professionally trained social worker, because I myself am a trained teacher, and I did my master's degree in international business finance. Now I'm doing a doctorate degree in public management, investigating performance management in public sector. And when I went in this social department, they were telling me that I should leave my 2 children in this country and go back to England, or when they grow up, they come to me. Similarly, in the court, there was a lot of prejudice. I could not believe that an institution in the land that should be highly respected, with people with moral values and integrity, would have addressed some issues when I presented in a very discriminative way. So my point is not that we should only focus on the side of South, you know, we should also focus on immigration as, or migration as in the country that you're living in. Because there's a lot of disparity. You know, I'll give you an example. I have an account, for example, in one institution, and I lost this card to get this money. They said they will send me this card in 3 days, but I said I need money today. They told me that I need to bring some form of ID. I have Slovenian permanent residence, I have passport, not driver's license, and I bring them this permanent resident. They told me that this is not enough. I give them driver's license. They told me this is not enough. So I said, okay, what is it that you need? Passport. So I said, okay, I cannot understand this, because if you give me driver's license, I must give you my passport before I can get your driver's license. Secondly, if you give me permanent resident, I must give you my passport and birth certificate before I can get your permanent resident. So, can you please explain to me what's the reason for these two documents? They said you must give a passport. I said, okay, I can give you a passport, but I'm trying to get the logics behind what is the motivation. What is the reason behind this? Because if I give you, if you give me some documents and you don't trust your own documents, why is it then you're going to trust mine? But as a person, you don't trust me as a person, but you trust the document that I will give you. You know, it doesn't make any logical sense. You know, so my question here is that I think that there must be some kind of education about immigrants and the challenges, because the challenges, particularly, I live in London, I never face challenges like this. And here, particularly if you don't speak the language, this is one mountain to climb. It's higher than Mount Everest. The second is that when you go in an institution to deal with anything, if you have problems or anything, there is immediately, they're not giving you this, they would, I would say, they abuse your rights. This is the total point. In terms of human rights, constitutional rights, I have this problem where they totally ignore. They listen only to their own people. Because at one point, one of these workers told me that because I had some problems, so I was in this social department. I will give you an example. And
but can I sorry, yeah. Can I stop you here, please? Because we are 10 minutes over now, yes, and it is really important what you're saying. But can you maybe just summarize now, okay, and then we have one more hand, and then we have to finish.
Okay, the summarizing.
We'll go to the point, and then we can talk more, all of us.
Okay, the point is that I think that in terms of migration and development, the main components is education. And the education is that the policymakers need to look at ways that they can educate their populace about other cultures. And not only race, but also religion, all different kind of, because I find it a bit very limited in this way.
So I'm from the African Student Association in Vienna, and thank you for all the presentation. I was really happy to see the positive part, but also I will say the bad part. But what I was missing, it was like, you talk about the learn, the earn, and the yearn, but I didn't hear this identify the diaspora, because there's people who are coming to work as a housekeeper, maybe there are people who are coming to make business, they are also students. But there is a difference between these people from the diaspora, and these people have a specific need, I think.
So I think before moving forward, we have to identify these people, the diaspora. And my question was like, what is the role of the youth in the diaspora, and what are you doing as actors for the diaspora, for the youth in diaspora coming in Europe, learning, and maybe going back going back home? Because, for example, in the example of Ghana, I really appreciate it. I was like, wow, we do that. There's this kind of initiative in Ghana. Sorry, I'm a bit stressed now, but. What is about, this was more about economic aspect, business aspect, but what is about the youth who are going back home, who wants to go back home? Are you also inviting them? This is one of the questions. The second one is more about what is the migrants, what can the migrants do for the development? But what I mean is like, are they going back home, but also saying, for example, in the Philippines, for the Philippines, saying that there is also bad aspect of migration. People can move, people can immigrate, but are they aware of the bad, but the cons and the bad, I don't know how you say that, but the cons and the bad aspect of the migration? If somebody wants to move, if somebody wants to say, I'm free, he has to be aware, and the awareness is through education and different type of things. So that was my point. Thank you.
In terms of diaspora and youth, for example, as a diaspora organization, we have been involved in many projects with young diaspora, not only Africans who are coming, say students, but the children of migrants. In terms of language education, some are doing work on language education, on religious education, and awareness of their countries of origin. About 10, 15 years ago, we ran a project called Opportunity Africa, where we were taking young Africans who've just graduated into internships within the UK and in Africa. Some of them now are in big positions across the world. I meet them. In fact, I met one of them representing the African Union last week at a delegation they turned up. But it is generally true that the youth are not as involved as they should be, and also the focus tends to be on youth who are doing quite well. So for example, they're in education, they're normal. But the problematic youth and all that, I think the entire diaspora is having difficulties with that. I think that was, what was the second question in terms of the support that countries do? Right now, in June of this year, IOM, International Organization for Migration, convened the first Diaspora Ministerial Conference. And amongst the people who, there were 40 governments represented across the world who have diaspora ministry units or departments represented. One of the chaps who ran a side event is a gentleman called Chigeze, who founded Afford. And whilst he was on stage, I had a very moving moment that I experienced. Almost nobody knew it in the hall, but I knew it. That when in 1994, him and others were thinking of conceptualizing this issue of migration and development, almost nobody understood or accepted it. 20 years later, there we were sitting. Institutions have come on board. They've even owned it. And there were about 40 ministers or senior level sitting there saying, this is our issue. I myself have been involved in training officials in Ghana and different countries. So it's work in progress, but I think it is alive enough for everyone to get involved. So pluralism, I would say, is the bottom line, and positivism. So all of the problems, let's concentrate on the solution. Thank you.